Good evening, Gills fans. Welcome back to another episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is Wednesday evening, which means one thing, of course, it is match preview showtime. And this weekend, the Gills trek north to the Peninsula Stadium to take on Karl Robinson, Salford City. And I'm pleased to say, making a return to the channel for the second time this season is Danny, who runs the brilliant One Up Front Salford City podcast. I will put the details, obviously, in the description at the bottom of this video. And by now, you know all the rest. Danny, appreciate you coming on. As always, it's a pleasure. So thank you very much.
Appreciate the invite. Loved it last time. Couldn't wait to get back.
Excellent stuff. You'd just be praying for a different result this time, I'd imagine.
I can't remember it. I forgot.
That's what
I genuinely can't.
It was 3-1 to us. Just
all
to
right.
your memory.
Okay.
Recent form is always a good place to start.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, both teams have 9 points from the last 18 available. Salford has come in the form of wins over Wrexham by 3-1, Barrow by 5-3. There's been draws against Swindon 1 each, Doncaster 2-2, and most recently Colchester Tuesday night by 1-1, sorry. And then there was a defeat, quite humbling. The unbeaten run did come to an end under Robinson and some. 5-1 defeat this previous Saturday. The Gills 9 points have been accrued through wins against Notts County and Wrexham by 3-1 and 1-0 respectively. Draws against Walsall, Swindon and Stockport, and a lone reverse against Newport in a very poor game. Salford currently sit 19th with 40 points from their 35 games, and the Gills are just outside the playoff zone, sitting in 8th with 51 from 34 after the round of midweek games. Danny, I want to talk about your home form. Obviously, we're coming to your place, so we've got to look at it in more detail. And you currently sit 21st in the home table. Won 4, drawn 6 and lost 7 this season so far. So it's 18 points. But to caveat that, 9 of them points have come in the last 5 games in which you're unbeaten, I believe. So swings and roundabouts, obviously want to be higher, generally, home table, away table. But has there been signs of improvement under Karl Robinson?
Right, I'm going to try not to bore you to death, right? I've got lots to say about that, but any statistic that this team created before Karl came in, forget about it, because it doesn't apply. Home form, away form, possession style, everything. Even the playing squad has kind of changed in a way. So I would just say that we've had a massive uplift, as you said. We're getting a lot more points. We're more competitive. You'll probably find us quite an aggressive team, but I think overall we look a little bit tired at the moment. We've put so much energy into so many games since he joined us that I think because we've rotated so little, because we haven't got a big squad, that we look to be running on fumes at the minute. So you may actually really be able to take advantage of that in the right way on Saturday.
I did have a little nose on your Twitter profile last night, and I see you've reposted a couple of things saying about tiredness and fatigue was just starting to kick in a little bit. Because I think it's 10 games that Robinson's been in charge of.
Okay.
I think the first 8 you won 4, drew 4. Obviously, the last 2 have only garnered 1 point. But overall, from 10 games, you'd take that, wouldn't you? It's been a solid start compared to where you were.
Oh, unbelievable! I mean, I was of the opinion that a magician couldn't come in and turn around the confidence levels that we had. We were absolutely on the floor, and I just thought, how is anybody going to change this around? But from the first game, because Karl came in, I think, on a Friday morning, and then his first game was against relegation rivals Forest Green. And you could even tell from that match, when he'd only had 1 training session, that we had a different playing style, more physicality. We were running around like madmen. And I thought, wow, where's this come from? And we've had that probably as long as our energy levels would allow it. And that's where I think Saturday, Tuesday games have started to find us out in the last week or 2.
Yeah, because I think both sides have had to play Saturday, Tuesday up until certainly the past week. We didn't have one this week, but you've had to play as well. Yeah. And I suppose it's an interesting battle, isn't it, Colchester? How were you against Colchester aside from the Tinies? Because they're in a similar position, aren't they? The Cowleys have gone in there and they're trying to get some sort of bounce and pull away from the danger zone like yourself. So was it a fair result, the 1-1 draw, or?
I always think I'm going to be very unpopular with my own team fan base, but I thought we were terrible, really, especially the first half, because we've actually been like dogs with a bone for the first 45 minutes in general since Karl's come in. But that was the first time where we completely were dominated in the first half. We should have been maybe 2 or 3 down after 20 minutes. And we actually scored against a run of play in injury time at the end of the first half. So it's, I actually feel we kind of edging down into a bit of a poor streak, and playing a team riding as high as you are, and as defensively, we always talk about your defense, not your attack, but your defense. There's quite a few nils up there, or at least ones. So, you know, the idea of getting beaten 5-1 like we did last Saturday, I don't see that kind of thing happening to your team.
No, I mean, and I think the back-to-back clean sheets against Stockport and Wrexham were probably two very different types of clean sheets, in the sense that we were appalling in terms of an attacking sense against Stockport, but needs must. And then Wrexham, we were more expansive, albeit still not scoring enough. But yeah, we fully deserved the 3 points based on the second half, I thought. And the Wrexham fans that I've spoke to, most have been fairly gracious and agreed that based on the second period, we were probably worthy of the maximum return. So it's going to be an interesting battle, because if you look at your games, it's the polar opposite of what we do. We don't score many, we don't concede many. You've scored and conceded 13 in your last half a dozen. So it's almost like, not quite the irresistible force and the immovable object, but it's going that way.
It is. I mean, I'll actually say, even though he's only been there such a short time, Karl's had 2 phases of emphasis. The first 6 games were get that ball as far up the field as quickly as possible as you can, and that was all it was about. Don't even look up. Don't matter where it's going. Just get it across the halfway line, which is not his traditional philosophy, from what I've been told. But I think he came in and looked at it and he thought, "What can I rely on? Matt Smith. Oh yeah, good old Matt Smith." And so we've utilised him as much as we possibly can. Now Callum Hendry has returned from injury, playing as a support striker, just a little bit deeper. We're trying to kind of work in a hybrid system of sometimes playing short, sometimes playing long. And I can actually see that the majority of our players in defensive midfield they're having to think more, and they're having to get used to thinking more again after it being so simple for 6 games in a row, which was boot it. So I actually think that we are definitely in a transition period between styles. We're moving kind of away from a completely direct style to one that has long and short options.
Which is interesting, because we probably we've almost done it the other way round.
Yeah.
After Neil Harris went, we had the interim period, and then Stephen Clements came in, and Stephen come out, and we'd seen the change of direction was mentioned at the time of the sacking, and it was we were going to become very possession based, and we were going to keep the ball and play through the thirds. And I think in the defeat at Tranmere, we completed 600 passes. But my point about that is, well, where are you making these 600 passes? And at the end of the day, the most important stat was the top left of the screen, and Tranmere had 3 goals and we had 1. I think Stephen Clements, to give him some credit, learnt really quickly that you do have to be a little bit more robust and have different ways to play in this division. And we've gone back to Ollie Hawkins being up front in a pair. So similarly to yourselves, we can get it up to Ollie, and then we can play in the final third off of him. So it'd be interesting to see what types of approach we see on Saturday, and whether both teams almost implement the 2 different styles as the game progresses and changes. We have to talk about Matt Smith. I remember speaking to you back in November prior to the game at the Priestfield, and you said that there was almost a clash between the style that Neil Wood was trying to play and the type of players you had, and Matt Smith was the very embodiment of that clash.
Yep.
He's an old-fashioned battering ram number 9. You get it into the box, he scores goals. He's still scoring goals.
Yeah.
I think he's got, I don't know, 8 in his last 10 or something ridiculous like that.
It feels like every time, yeah.
And the goal he scored at the Priestfield was a very Matt Smith goal. Ball came in from the left. I know you said at the time it was a slightly different type of cross, but it's a ball into the 6-yard box, and he gets on the end of it and attacks it and scored a good header. So, number 1, is Karl Robinson going to persist with Matt Smith because he scored 42% of your league goals?
Nope.
Or are you going to try and go away from that now, which for me would be a risk from the outside looking in, considering he's got 22 for the season? Where would you be without his goals would be my question. And can you afford to go away from that too much?
I thought you were asking in the long term. My long-term view is next season, Matt Smith will be somewhere else completely. Okay. If Karl's that's why I was kind of with all the finger wagging. I think Matt Smith has had about 15 minutes off the field since Karl joined us. He started every game, and he was only subbed against Mansfield because we were dead in the water at 3-1 and we'd had a man sent off. So he wanted to just rest them old legs. So yeah, I think Matt Smith will start, injury permitting. He's been very, very healthy through his tenure. We might not have Callum Hendry because he is subbed before half time with an injury on Tuesday. So if we only have the one option, the direct option, it simplifies things. It's not particularly attractive to look at, but if we only have one target up front, then the team know what to do with that.
Yep.
That's very easy for them to, there's no thinking time necessary. So I do believe what you will see for the last time we'll play you this season is a relatively direct approach and an attempt to be aggressive and physical and intense. But I just think we lack the athletes to be able to continue this for the remainder of the season. I think we are wearing down a bit already.
So it's a case of get as many points as you can as quickly as possible, and then
get safe.
Exactly. Yeah, which I think you will be, and that's probably as much to do with the fact that Forest Green and Sutton do look to be getting cut adrift, despite two very impressive results for both teams in the middle of the week.
Yeah.
Almost brings me on to my next point, Danny. Then is there a case at some point, maybe not Saturday, where he just starts experimenting? Because looking at the table, you're 11 points off the playoffs. You've got to gain a point a game.
Yeah.
Essentially, without other teams picking up points between now and the end of the season. So the playoffs are gone.
Yeah.
I would say. But I can't see you being in any real danger. On 40 points, I think the bottom two are on 27 and 26. So again, it'd be the same way. It'd take a massive drop off from yourselves and a ridiculous run for them two to get out of trouble. So is there a case for Robinson going, right, let's just try and maybe give, I know it's an old cliche, the younger players, if there is any, a bit of game time, or those that need minutes to try and see if anyone are worth their while for next season, which is obviously going to be the longer term project if Karl stays at the football club.
Exactly. If that's the if, because I'm constantly going on about on every podcast to do. He has not got a contract that we are aware of the length. It's not advertised. It's not 2.5. It's not half year. It's not to the end of the season. He's just our head coach at the moment. That's all any of us know. So
it could almost just be like a rolling month to month thing.
It could be. It could be a game to game. And in that sense, it may suit Karl because he's turned around an absolutely dead weight of a team in no time at all, and he's got a lot of points for them, and it may attract suitors from higher up this division or even in League One to start next season.
Which is an interesting point, because I remember when we sat Neil Harris, Karl Robinson was linked to us, and I believe at the time there was rumours in the press that Karl Robinson said he didn't want to manage lower than League One.
Wow.
So I guess needs must for him and needs must for you at the time, so it worked.
Yeah.
But then that would make the short-term contract, whatever it is, make sense.
It does. I honestly think when it comes down to leverage, he's the one with it, not us, because he's shown the fan base that something can be achieved, even with a badly constructed a squad of players. That it's a mismatch of, Matt Smith here, a few possession-based midfielders, centre halves who can't really pass. So I actually think, going back to your initial question, is what should he do when we are safe? Should he start introducing younger players? Well, he did by default last night. He played a 16-year-old lad called Karel Malcolm, but that's only because we had no one else fit in kind of the wide right position. I don't see any harm if Karl has an intention of staying beyond this season, of introducing and blooding some younger players and giving some game time to younger players who were playing under Neil Wood, because we've got nothing to lose and a lot to gain from seeing will they sink or swim? Because some of them are eye-catching. Kelly and Mai, Liam Humbles alike, Junior Luamba, who, I've got to mention this, right? Karl, in his interview after the Mansfield game, said Junior Luamba is £1 million player.
Is that the lad who scored your goal?
Yeah.
Jinked in off the left, beat about 3 players and smashed it in the near post.
It's his first goal.
Really good goal.
It's a great goal. First goal he scored for us. He's a very willing runner, a player who was released from Oldham, I think earlier in the season, who we picked up on a whim. He's not £1 million player, but I think Karl likes to boost his players up. And it just, to me, it feels a bit insulting it's so far of the mark. But who knows, But he won't be playing. I think he'll be injured for Saturday, so you won't have to worry about him.
was going to say he wasn't in the squad for the Colchester game, so that
No,
was my next
injured.
question.
Yeah,
Was
he's
there a
out.
problem? Okay, which is a shame for the lad after scoring his first
Yeah.
goal. I think one other player, Danny, that we spoke about at the beginning of the season because he'd missed the early portion of the campaign was Elliot Watt.
Oh, yeah.
And there was this almost a misconception that Elliot Watt seems to, I think because of his numbers last season, I think from the outside, we almost thought of him as an attacking midfielder. And you said, no, he plays a lot deeper.
Yes.
Just looking at recent games, he sits in front as a pair in front of the back four, but his numbers are there for all to see again. So we've spoken about Matt Smith likely to be the goal threat. I assume Elliot Watt will be one of them that's trying to pull the strings. And if I've got it right, he's got 6 assists this season, but 5 have come in his last 10 games. So he's a player that's at least individually running into some good form as the business end of the season approaches. So to counter all the younger players and trying to blood them, you're still going to need a handful of the experienced ones that are playing well to get them youngsters through the remaining dozen games or whatever it is. You've got left 11 games, I think, sorry.
Yeah. Again, I'm rubbish on stats in terms of how many games left, but I'll go with whatever you said. 11. If it's 11, that's fine. Elliot himself has definitely. Last time we spoke, I think he was only just coming back from injury, and it had coincided with a bit of a kind of a pre-death spike in before Neil Wood was finally moved aside. So, but now he is properly looking. Even in our poorer performances, he's still looking like the man. From deep. The issue with him is the same as the issue with Callum Hendry, is that I think they both out of contract at the end of the season. I think both of them could probably easily go to a much more star-studded club with a bigger wage budget in our division, or I think earlier in the season, even League One teams were coming knocking for Elliot Watt. So it's because we only sold Luke Bolton to Wrexham because his contract he wouldn't sign. So we're kind of being asset stripped from within because nobody is seemingly wanting to sign on the dotted line. So I actually think if Karl said, "I'm here next year, lads, stick with me and we'll do something," which I think we would, then I think that Hendry and Watt may sign on the dotted line, and we can actually keep a bit of a core as well as maybe the youngsters that may, be blooded in the next few weeks.
But yeah, so it's almost chicken and egg situation
It is.
at the moment.
He's got to come first. Karl's got to signal this for me.
Yeah, which is it. So like you said, all the powers with him at the moment, and it's in his court. So you just got to sit tight and hope that he does see that there is a longer term project to work with.
Hope
so. More immediately is obviously team news for Saturday afternoon. As I always say to the viewers, we record on a Wednesday, so it's the day before official press conferences and that. You've mentioned the young lad who's not going to be available for Saturday. Is there anyone else that's come out of Saturday and or Tuesday that might be struggling, or suspensions, injuries, anything like that?
I'm not actually sure what I'm rubbish on knowing how long a suspension is, but Theo Vassell, who has been an ever-present at centre-half since Karl's come in, he's in brilliant form recently. He was sent off against Mansfield. So I don't know how many games you get for it was a straight red, although I think he'd already got a yellow, but maybe it was a straight red for that challenge. I wasn't quite sure, even though I was at the game. So I think he'll be out, which then means we've got a quite aging, quite small Adrian Mariappa as our second centre-half, which is a bit of an issue. And I did mention that Callum Hendry, as well as Junior Luamba, the £1 million man in question marks, that Callum Hendry will likely miss because I think his scan has shown there's an issue after he was subbed after yesterday's game. So there's a good few out, and the bench last night looked quite thin. So yeah, it's not looking great, but I do think Cal's a great motivator. So he can always get a tune out of us. I wouldn't ever write us off. I think that our determination to come back in games has been why our unbeaten run was as long as it was.
Okay. Yeah, and again, whether it's actually a thing or it's just a bit of a myth, you always hope for the new manager bounce, and it seems you certainly got it. If it is a thing with what did we say? So it was 10 games, 4 wins, 5 draws, so 4 threes of 12, 17 points from 10 games is good form in anyone's. But I mean, that'd take you to sort of the verge of the playoffs over a full season. Understand it's a very small segment of the season, but compared to where you were, it's been a huge turnaround.
Sure.
In terms of the Gills team news, Josh Andrews, who we signed on deadline day, is still struggling with some sort of issue and has had a setback, so he won't be available. I don't think they're waiting for a second opinion on that, which doesn't sound entirely encouraging, having paid a fee for him. Dom Jeffries won't be back till the back end of the campaign. He's got a thigh issue. Jorge Hurtado, who we signed from Watford in the Championship and very good in 3 cameos, has done knee cartilage, so likely out for pretty much the rest of the season. I think there's talk if we got into the playoffs, he might be available for that, but obviously being a lone player, you're in the hands of the parent club, Watford. And I'm guessing we've got doubts over Jake Turner, who missed his first league game of the season last weekend against Wrexham and was replaced by the evergreen Glenn Morris. And George Lapsley, I'm not sure whether he's going to be fit enough to take any part. He missed Tuesday, Saturday with a hamstring problem, but would imagine if he's back, it'll be bench at best. So how do you see Karl Robinson lining you up then, given the fact that you've got issues in key areas as well, in terms of Hendry playing as that sort of that 10 in between the striker and the midfielder? Yeah. You're going to be missing a centre half potentially as well. It's bad areas to be missing good players, isn't it? How do you think Karl will try and counter that, and how do you see him lining up?
Well, I'll tell you one thing as well. One thing I was so annoyed with him on Saturday was the fact we got, basically, I would say our formation on Saturday was 2-4-4 because the fullbacks were pushed up into midfield and we had massive gaps either side of the centre halves. And it felt like there was we got beat 5-1 in the end. A few goals apparently were offside from Mansfield. I don't get into that. It's either offside or it's not. It's given or it's not. You know what I mean? Yep. But I felt he left his centre halves out to dry, did Karl, because of the formation against a really good Mansfield team away. I hope he doesn't do that against you guys on Saturday. I think one area, I'm not trying to give you hints here, but we play our right back, who's not even a right back. He's actually a loanee from West Ham. He's a converted wide player. He's ridiculously far upfield on purpose all game. So our right back area is ripe for the plucking, and Mansfield saw that. So I saw it quite a lot as well last night but Colchester have not got the quality of yourselves to exploit that. I know you're not exactly the most dynamic attacking force, but you're a solid unit who can eke a win. And if you get one goal, then we might get nothing. So yeah, I do think the fact that we play almost like a 2-4-4 without any kind of recognised right back, it's a constant worry to me, that in games.
It'd be interesting, wouldn't it? Because I'd imagine it'd be Max Clark for us, who'd be the left wing back, and then Johnny Williams in the 10. So that'd be interesting if Clark can get on into that space, or whether Johnny gets that free roll and is able just to drift into little bits of space and pick up position. So yeah, that's certainly something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
In terms of the Gills team, I can't see us changing it. I mean, the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Why would you change it after beating Wrexham and keeping a clean sheet just 7 days ago by the time we kick off, unless anything comes up in the week in training in terms of injury? So I guess the only question mark for the Gills will be over Jake Turner and Glenn Morris in goal, whether Jake comes back in. But again, I'd be inclined, and that's no disrespect to Jake, who I think has been very good this season, has kept 11 of our 12 clean sheets, I think it is. But Glenn Morris just looked like he'd never been away, and at 40, he's still as good as ever. So I'd keep him in goal. So then it'd be a back three of Masterson, Amor and Ogie. From right to left, it'd be Hutton, Dieng, Coleman, Clark. Johnny Williams, as I've already mentioned, probably in the 10. And then I'd persist with the partnership of Hawkins and Naddison up front. And Naddison's not scored since August, but I just think he needs a run of games with a regular partner to try and get that confidence back. The dreaded final question, Danny, before I let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening, is always the score prediction.
No.
Sorry, I'm not sorry, really.
Gab sort of knows I don't like your predictions. My predictions, I should say. Okay, I feel we're actually on a bit of a downturn. I don't want to be too negative. I think it's going to be 1-1. I think it's going to be low scoring.
See, I've written that down as well. But you've almost talked me into thinking that we might win the game. It's
5-1
almost like
again.
You're trying to sell me 3-1s. Yeah. So that would be an interesting battle. But yeah, certainly looking at your last two, you've scored 1 in each. We don't score loads, but we don't concede too many either. So I think it says both teams to score, but not loads. So yeah, and I don't think a point would be a disaster for us, even though we're chasing the playoffs, as long as we back it up with our home games. I think we've got to play another midweek game, and we keep saying it's in our hands. We've got to play a lot of the teams in and around us. We've still got to play Mansfield, we still got to play Crewe, we still got to play Barrow twice, we still got to play Harrogate.
Wow.
So we can't say it's not in our hands at all, this playoff push. And yeah, I always say if you pick up draws on the road and win the majority of your home games, you're not going to be far away. So I don't think a draw would be a disaster.
Just one thing I'd like to say, Matt, is that I think looking at yourselves, I was looking at your results and the fact you changed. It seems like a consistent change to a back three, back five for the last healthy number of games. That I think because we're in like a transition mode between one style and another, and we're right in that kind of confused part of where we're not quite sure what we're supposed to be doing. I really think that will be a major factor, because to be able to make quick decisions and to be confident in them, which I presume your players are.
We're getting there. There's signs of it, yeah.
Yeah. This is a presumption completely on my part, but I honestly think that I was so caught between should I, shouldn't I, that I really do think that will count as a negative on Saturday, because he's only got a few training sessions and it was so ugly last night. I can't tell you, it was awful. So you've got a brilliant time to play, as I must say.
Fingers crossed we can make it back-to-back wins at your place then after the final day victory last season.
Not, but
of course. Danny, it's been a pleasure as always.
Always, yeah.
Thank you, mate. I really appreciate your time. And as always, like I say, Gills fans and Salford fans, if you're still watching at this part, then I do appreciate it. Please continue to hit the like button for this video, and please go and press subscribe. We are, I think, 6 away at the time of recording from 3,000 subscribers on the channel, which I keep saying is absolutely ridiculous. So thank you for all your ongoing support. As I've already said as well, go and follow Danny, because he does some brilliant stuff on Salford City. And if you're just a football fan, it's brilliant stuff to read and listen to. Danny really knows his stuff. I'm not just saying that because he sat there near me. He really does. There's plenty of good content creators out there. We all know that. We'll be back Saturday. Myself, Ava and Nick are on the bus at 6:15, heading up north to come and watch the Gills take on Karl Robinson's men. So come and say hi if you're at the ground. After that, we'll be returning Sunday with Reese and I believe Danny again for match day review. Fingers crossed it's a positive performance and a positive result for the Gills. But until the next time, enjoy the rest of your evening and up the Gills.